We are on live stream now, so we may start. Losalier.
But I am not, I don't see myself, but probably you will see me. But welcome, welcome to everyone.
Hold on, let me see Victor.
I can see Leah.
Oh,
right?
You can.
Do you see?
Yes.
Okay. Everything is all right. Okay.
Everything is all right. So, okay, Ayati.
Hello.
Nice to see you and all other friends and interested people in the situation in Myanmar. We are very glad at Junction to be partnering with AJAR on this to again give attention to what is happening. We had already done six episodes of bi-weekly updates with the editor, the chef editor and founder of Irrawaddy, Aung Zaw. But this time we have another excellent resource, Khin Ohmar, who is well known as a peace activist, woman activist, and very well regarded globally. And this is indeed a very global event because she is in the States. I am in Italy, and BOM and Junction is in Bangkok. Now, without further ado, we will do like in the past. Khin Ohmar will talk for about 20 minutes about what she sees as the most relevant issue that have occurred in this recent time. It's already 6 months since the coup has occurred, so there is a lot of fear that unfortunately it will continue for still a very long time. And we have heard that the military has dismantled the previous annulled election result and declare that they are a transition government, as many other neighboring countries have done in the past. Is an old mechanism, and of course this makes us quite anxious. But I will let her talk, and after she give her view, we will open the floor for anyone interested in commenting and asking. Please, and thank you again, Ohmar, for being with us.
Thanks, Leah, for your kind introduction. Thanks to Junction and AJAR for also organizing, hosting this series of updating events on what's happening in Myanmar. And thanks to all of you who are joining this session with us today, friends from near and far. This is a session where, of course, I will be sharing the updates that you may have already read and learned from the news, and some you haven't yet. But also within the time frame that we have, I'm hoping to also have this interaction with all of you, where you might have questions and suggestions, and if any Myanmar people who might be joining this session, of course, please also feel free and join me in with your updates and comments as well. So thank you for this time. So as Leah has already mentioned in her introduction, we already marking 6 months of this attempted coup by the Myanmar military. And I keep using the word, I have chosen to be very carefully of using the word like attempted coup, because this coup is still an attempt. And in fact, it is not successful yet. It is actually continue to be failing, because the Myanmar people unanimously categorically continue to be rejecting this brutal and unlawful coup by this military. With that note starting, I want to give you some of the key developments or the updates situation on the ground. Since the coup in the last 6 months, the military is not stopping of their attacks, violent attacks on the people, and also their nationwide campaign of terror against the people. They continue to be attacking the people, the professionals, including the medical workers, the doctors, who are the leading, components of this nationwide democracy movement against this military. So far, to date, the military, as of August 2, yesterday, at least 945 people have been killed. And this 945, I said at least, is because it can be a lot more than this number. This is the, as far as what has been able to document by the Assistant Association for Political Prisoners, but also by the the documentation of our another network, Alternative ASEAN Network. There are actually like about 100, 200 number of people who have been civilians who are killed also in the ethnic areas where the military use the aerial bombings and artillery shellings and attacking the civilians. So in that number, we have, let me also add other numbers of where the current people are facing on the ground. The military has arrested more than 7,000 people. And in that 7,000 people, almost 5,500 remain to be behind the bar in the detention. And most of them are facing severe torture. And also, in many cases where, that these democracy activists, bodies were returned to the family members, although their bodies were not even returned to the family members where they died from the torture. That is also a sexual violence being committed by the security forces of the military in the detention, including even in the police station. So these young women who have been at the forefront of the democracy movement, who've been arrested and detained, also facing such challenge. Not only the women, but also the LGBTIQ persons, activists who are actually in prison are facing sexual violence, sexual assault, and this is another severe situation that we are seeing on the ground. About 2,000 people continue to be evading the arrest warrant by the military. That means the military continue with their daily and nightly manhunt. For so far, more than 50 people have been sentenced to death. 29 are sentenced in person in the kangaroo courts of the military courts in prison, while the 39 are sentenced to death in absentia. And among those 39 who are sentenced to death in absentia, some are political leaders. So total 65 people have been sentenced to death, more than 65. So we also have quite a large number of journalists in prison. So we have about 32 were in prison because of their work. And then the very reason that they are behind the bar is because of, they've been accused as they are anti-state, like spreading the false news, etc. But of course, what they're doing is really getting the accurate information of what's happening to the people on the ground, to you, to the world. And that's the very reason that they've been punished. The other thing is that, how the military has effectively criminalized this independent journalism is really affecting how the information coming out of Myanmar. For the last 6 months, not only the journalists, but also the citizen journalists are the ones who've been sending out all the information to you with the photos and videos of what's happening to them. The journalism and the media. So that's the very reason that many of the international community started to see less news of what's happening in Myanmar on daily basis. Many areas where the military severely attacks the civilians are in the rural and ethnic remote areas where there is no media presence, of course. But this is something, it is really serious, in the case when the military is committing crimes against humanity and war crimes. So it's very dangerous. Many journalists have gone into exile or in hiding, but they continue to be reporting as much as they can. So you are still seeing that. The civil disobedience movement of Myanmar overall, yes, you don't see the massive, like 100,000, people on the street marching like in the first 3 months of the coup. You don't see them like that at this time, but the movement continued to be very firm and strong in terms of their response and resilience, and also continuing with their daily peaceful protest in different parts of the country. Even as we're speaking, on like August 2, August 3, the people continue to be showing their resilience and defiance against this military. And their motto that continue to hold is that we will never allow you to rule us. And that is continue to be the very slogan that they keep up with. So this is something that we have to also, we would like for the international community and friends in the region to see that people of Myanmar are not giving up, and they will not give up. I think this is where also, we can discuss like how you can also support their ongoing persistent struggle for the return of democracy and civilian rule. And right now, about 20,000 university and college teachers, who are actually a part of the civil disobedience movement have been suspended. And they continue with their work. They continue with what they can do with teaching online or doing whatever they can. The students themselves from the elementary, from the high school to the higher education are continuing with their protest. So they are not joining this education system under the military control. So it's also very important to take a note of that. So I want to go on to the other thing is that in the ethnic areas, you will see also in the ethnic areas, the people in the ethnic areas are also a part of this whole larger CDM movement or the Spring Revolution. So you see them continuing with, raising their voices, the civil society organizations, community-based organizations, they are all against this military junta. Let me also bring you to another aspect in the ethnic areas. There are, as those of you who follow Myanmar closely know, that the ethnic nationalities, the ethnic minority communities, there are the revolutionary armies who've been fighting against the central government or the central military regimes for a long time. And many of them have joined the people's movement, showing their support to the people who are against this military coup. And they have been also not only showing their solidarity, with the statements, but also they are allowing the people who are running away from the military violence in the urban and city areas to come into their control areas and take refuge. So that's also another thing that is happening. But because of also the ethnic communities' strong resilience and defiance against this military in this 6 months of the attempted coup, the military is also launching series of attacks from the area bombing to the artillery shelling. And there are 2,000 plus airstrikes were taken place in Kachin state in the north to the east, eastern border with Thailand. In the current state, Shan state, there are area bombings. And that already resulted or led to a 250,000 internally displaced people, 250,000 displaced ethnic civilians in Kachin, Karen, Shan, and also the Chin state in the western part of Myanmar, bordering with India as well. So this is also another humanitarian crisis come to be intensified because the civilians in those areas, ethnic areas, are already vulnerable. They are already vulnerable, due to this decades of military attacks. And then with this, a Spring Revolution, of course, there are more, targeted attacks from the military. So that's where they are. At the moment, the need for the humanitarian aid is very, very dire. And Also, we are calling for the cross-border humanitarian aid, like from Thailand side. We are appealing to the Thai government to allow the humanitarian aid, cross-border to be delivered to those civilians who are in most dire need of the humanitarian assistance. And then I want to bring your attention to another area where the military, is also using their heavy machineries targeting the whole communities. So I share with you how they target the ethnic communities in the borderlands of Myanmar, whether in the east or north or west, but also in the central, very central area in the upper Myanmar, in the dry area. That's where also the people are. This is where the stronghold of the supporters of the National League for Democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi's party. And because these areas are very strong supporter of the National League for Democracy in support of Aung San Suu Kyi, the military is also taking a very targeted revenge, like setting the whole villages on fire and indiscriminately shooting into the villages in the those small village or very small sub village tracts. And not only in the villages, those who ran, who had to run out of their village and trying to take refuge in the nearby jungles, forest areas, the military did this like a manhunt and also kill them indiscriminately. So there are mass killings are happening in the central part of Myanmar also. So that is another area where we see the military has been committing these crimes against humanity. So I have shared with you a little bit about the humanitarian crisis that has come to be very severe. And to the point that, it is this humanitarian crisis, let's not make a mistake, it is created by this military junta. And it's not only that they create it, but they also block and attack anyone who are trying to address this humanitarian crisis. Even the local volunteers who are trying to help their own communities, in the very local, small-scale way, are attacked and targeted, like arrested and tortured. So the military want to ensure it is a collective punishment. That's what they are doing. So they want to ensure that people who are defiant against their rule are going to be punished collectively. So that's how they are also doing in terms of how they target the ordinary people. There is a very famous full cut strategy this military has used all along our country's history when they target any particular community, whether they are religious minority like the Rohingya community or the other ethnic communities like the Shan or the Karen. They use this full cut policy. What they call is the clearance operation. And they try to really target the individual or specific community that they will be cutting off the information, cutting off the food, and cutting off the recruit, and by doing that, they are trying. Their whole purpose is to have a full control. So that is also something that we are seeing that strategy being come back, applied by this military in the last 6 months in different parts of the country. And this is, of course, is also a very breach of the Geneva Convention, where they are in the combat or non-combat in the conflict areas, they are really deliberately targeting the civilians. So this is something that we are raising to the international community, to the UN, after this same military committed genocide against the Rohingya in 2017. And this same strategy has also been applied to many other ethnic communities. And now we started to see the similar pattern in this past 6 months of the coup attempt. And they are, burning the rice or the food storage. They are burning the medicine and other essential humanitarian aid and also destroying the, anything that the different charity groups are bringing in with the vehicles to the areas. Even recently, the UNHCR had the first mission to the Myint in Chin State in Western Myanmar to deliver the needed aid to the community. But their mission was the mission was not successfully completed because the military did not allow. So this is also one thing that we are seeing. Any goodwill local missions are not allowed, while the international aid delivery mission can also be targeted and blocked or prevented from doing their mission to help the people in need. So this is something that I want to bring to your attention. The other thing that I want to talk about is the COVID, because the COVID situation now is very severe as we are facing the third wave. The surge is it is an outbreak out of control. And the very reason it is out of control is also because first, along with that military coup, this military already targeted the health facilities. They have taken over a number of health facilities, including the hospitals across the country, when they are also targeting the medical doctors and health workers, with the arrest, imprisonment, and also a threat. So this is something, the medical doctors in Myanmar or the health workers in Myanmar are trying their best to help the people in need, but also they are facing the two very severe risks. On one side is the COVID, along with the rest of the population, they are facing the risk. But also on the other side, they are facing the risk of this military attack, the risk of being arrested and tortured and detained and imprisoned. In spite of that, they're continuing with their mission to save the people's lives on the ground. This is the military who have built the new crematorium that can burn the body up to 3,000, while they attack the medical workers and medical facilities who will save the people's lives. And this is the regime that we are dealing with, who is continuing to be committing unspeakable crimes to the point of that they just don't care how many people die in this country. If you will recall, back in 2008, there was a cyclone Nagis hit the southern delta region of Myanmar. And that cyclone Nagis killed at least 140,000 people. In spite of the outcry from both domestic and international community, the military regime, of course, it is with a different leader back then, but this is the same military that we're dealing with. It's just the personal change at the top. But that time, the military carry on with their political agenda of trying to adopt the constitution, which will give them the disproportionate power to continue to control both the politics and economy of the country. They push forward with the agenda to hold the referendum in spite of that cyclone killing the people. Their priority is to get their constitution adopted at the expense of tens of thousands of people being killed with the cyclone Nagis. But now here we are facing this military who is trying to control the country, who is trying so hard to take full control by continuing to be killing, attacking as whatever it takes for them to keep themselves in power. And now they are actually allowing this COVID surge to take the people's lives by also not only the blocking the health workers from doing their work, but also stopping the very much needed basic necessity like oxygen. Also shutting down the oxygen plants, also shutting down, closing the what do you call them? The pharmacies, for example, the medicine shops, where people have no hospitals to go and get a treatment. People are being turned away from even from those hospitals where the military has taken over, or the military hospitals. People cannot actually get a treatment. So this is where we are seeing the situation with the COVID. And it's also interesting, this military, in fact, called for the international cooperation just a few days ago, a week, not even a week yet. But what is so interesting is that this is the same military who is actually killing the people, even like weaponizing the COVID for their political gain or the power gain. It's now calling for the international cooperation. And it comes as a very usual, like a suspicion based on our lifelong experience of how they do things. We see that this is calling for the international cooperation is not to save the people, but really to, bring the international aid to use for their political purpose. Let me move on to the next, as I started already sharing with you, how this military only focus on their power. Now the COVID-19, this third wave surge could be a way out for them to have a full control by bringing in the international community to join them in this COVID combating the COVID. The thing is, they have also now come to the point of announcing themselves as the caretaker government. So the leader of the coup, Commander-in-Chief of Myanmar military, Min Aung Hlaing, who stands accused of genocide against the Rohingya 4 years ago, and the crimes against humanity and war crimes against the other ethnic minorities. Now he has changed the uniform from the military green uniform to the civilian uniform, making the announcement, appointing himself and his junta as the caretaker government. Absolutely illegal body again, because there is no constitution. Even their own constitution doesn't allow them to give them the right to form the caretaker government. But yes, they have formed now. But what that tells us is this military junta telling the whole world that they will hold a new election in next 2 years' time. This is just a time-buying tactic, a usual tactic that they use all along. But that tells us that this military has the plan to stay in power for a longer period, like they have done in the past. So here we are, our friends, our colleagues. Myanmar is at the very verge of becoming to be, some people call as coming to be a full failed state. But the reality is people are not giving up. So what we can turn from that possibility of failed state, we can tend to become the military failed coup, complete failed coup. And if the military attempted coup is completely failed, that means people of Myanmar win in their very strong, resilience and fight against this junta, where the Myanmar can come back to have a civilian rule, turn on the new page for the country to move into a democratic federal democratic union that everybody is aspire to move forward for all the ethnic communities in Myanmar to be in the equal political partnership of the country. We still have a chance after 6 months, but also because of both the humanitarian and human rights crisis this military has created, we also have a huge challenge that we are dealing, and especially those people on the ground in Myanmar are on one side suffering from the COVID and humanitarian crisis, on the other side continue to be suffering from this military attacks, but carrying on with their unwavering relentless fight against this military junta. I'll end here, and I'll be happy to hear your comments, questions for me to clarify and respond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Omar. I think you end up on an awful note, stressing the resilience and the determination of the Myanmar people to not accept at all the attempt to control, military control Myanmar. And this is, I think, an outstanding example for the entire region, which is also plagued by authoritarian forces. We have already a question, but I am asking if there are other questions. We may take one or two more questions. You can write it in the box, or otherwise you can also raise your hand, I mean the visual hand, and ask directly. But let's start from the one that is already in the box, which is about what you think that will happen in September when both Tatmadaw and NUG will look for formal recognition at the UN. And here, as said in the comment, China and Russia may support the military, while the US has made a condition or seems to be put pressure to include Rohingya representation if the NUG wants to get their support. So this is one question. I had another question, my own, because I have read your article, very good article on international aid, and as you know, is a passion of mine. To focus on international aid. And I think you take a very strong point about donors have to be very careful about how they will interact with Myanmar, and that the way is not through bilateral aid, but is through direct aid to civil society organization, also those living on the border area. So that is something I like you to elaborate more. And here we have another last question for this round. What form of support are the Chinese providing to Tatmadaw, either from private sector as well as the government itself?
Thank you. Thank you for this round of questions. So I'll start with the first question on the credential issue at the upcoming UN General Assembly. Well, let me start sharing my thought on where the US government and where US government should be. Being an advocate for also for the rights of the Rohingya community, as an ethnic community of our country who belong to this country, to our, like Myanmar or Burma as a whole, like they are a part of. The National Unity Government, I see them taking the step, coming up with the position on how they will, the policy on how they will address the situation of the Rohingya people. It is a first step to welcome, but it is not enough yet. And I'm for one who want to personally see that policy put into action. Like, just to give you one example, for example, the 1982 citizenship law, which is quite a discriminatory, but that citizenship law is not only discriminatory to the Rohingya community alone, but it is discriminatory to the many others too in this country. But of course, the Rohingya community, suffer the harshest consequence of this law. The National Unity Government, in their policy in response to the Rohingya situation, to address the Rohingya situation, they could have just abolished it. Why wait, right? Just go ahead and abolish it. I think just like they have done abolishing the 2008 Constitution, and this law can be abolished too. So that could be a one thing in action. And the other is like, we are all saying like, include the Rohingya community representatives in the different political processes that the current spring revolution or this, current spring revolution or the National Unity Government is involved or leading or processing. So have them be a part of the National Unity Government, have them be a part of the other, political dialogues or the, anything in that. So bring them in and, be a part of all of this, coming together for the new future Burma. new Myanmar with the new, this collective leadership coming together. So this is something that NUG can actually do it with their, their political will. Saying that, I still don't think it is fair for the US government for taking the position against or not against yet, but not taking the strong position in support of the national unity government. Because after all, if you really follow the US government policy, starting from the country opening up in 2011 and 12, during the time of Obama administration neglected the ethnic nationalities of our country. Their generation-long political aspiration for federal democratic union. The Obama administration only leaned towards Aung San Suu Kyi and the mainstream politics or mainstream political actors, but not giving the equal chance or the space to the ethnic nationalities, their political aspiration for equal partnership of this country. So now, with the national unity government, this is the first time ever, very historic, very significant of this coming together. We have the elected representatives, from the 2020 election, who are mostly from the National League for Democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi's party, as well as from some of the ethnic political parties, as well as they are joined by the community representatives of the different ethnic nationalities, such as the Kachin, the Karen, the Crony, and the Mon, and the Chin. Of course, we are quite diverse country, so not every community's representative is there in the NUG, which is also not possible, not practical. However, in this grouping, it is quite a representative of this ethnic communities and the ethnic minority communities, as well as the ethnic Burma majority who are elected members, as well as also from the, the leaders of the Spring Revolution, like the civil disobedience movement. They are there. So this is a quite unique opportunity for Myanmar to move forward, to actually open the new history, new page of the history of the country. And if the US government don't invest or bet on any grouping like this, who else do they want to, invest in? Of course, like I always tell everyone, hold the NUG accountable, push them to do the right thing, whether for the Rohingya community or the other issues, to come onto the right track, to do the right thing for the human rights protection for all the communities. So yes, we keep pushing them, we keep pushing them, we push them, and we hold them, to be accountable government. But also at the same time, let's maximize this opportunity that the Spring Revolution heroes and heroines who gave up their lives for this new chapter of the country. So my question to the US government is, if you don't support the national unity government in your claiming of supporting the Burmese democracy movement or the Myanmar's democracy movement, who are you going to support? So I want to see, US government take a very firm stand and position in the coming weeks at the UN General Assembly, being a permanent member of the Credential Committee, take a very firm stand supporting the national unity government as the legitimate people representative government of Myanmar. And if we don't see that from Washington, D.C. happening, I just cannot see how the US government say that they are supporting our people's movement. So let's just, see what they're going to do. Like I said, it is not fair for the US government, who also, have to go through with their own, issues to address domestically, to see a country that they have supported, a country, Myanmar, Burma, whose democracy movement they have supported for a long time. they should see that this is the moment that they take the right stand in politics of Burma. Yeah. And the next question, I think that links to this first question, is the Chinese. As we know, China, Russia, also being the other two permanent members of the Credential Committee, I think we are already, people don't want to even question where they're going to stand. Of course, Russia being even more aggressively supporting the military junta since they took this military coup. But then China, all along, for China, we see that, no matter who is in charge, they will just join the club. That's how we see China is when it comes to our country's situation. And which is very sad also, of course, because, China should see where the people of Myanmar stand and their desire as the, the closest neighbor. But they're rather, in the past, they have supported the previous military regime all along, including diplomatically. They are the best diplomatic shield, giving the protection at the international, within the UN and international fora, giving the protection to the military junta in the past. Yes, true, in the past 5 years, they work with the the National League for Democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi government. They work with Aung San Suu Kyi, but now Aung San Suu Kyi is now, in incarceration. So we started to see them even, giving the recognition to the military junta, and also continue to be a stumbling block in the United Nations, particularly at the Security Council, being the veto among the big five. China could have done the right thing for the people of Myanmar, but they're not. They usually have never. So it's really sad to see that China continue to be taken side with the military junta, knowing that this is the junta who will never bring the Myanmar people, a peaceful solution for the Myanmar people. So this is very sad. They sell the arms, of course they do, and they also rip off our natural resources in the past decades, and they continue to do so. So it is, again, Myanmar people are very disheartened by how China takes the position with taking side with the military. The other question on the coming back to you, Leah, with your question on the donors, the humanitarian aid donors. Those of you who haven't read it, please do read my op-ed. The reason that I call, I've been wanting to write this for at least 2 months. Thank you. So, because the thing is, whenever we engage in discussion on the humanitarian aid, all of these international humanitarian actors, all the agencies will always come with this, principle of neutrality and impartiality. Yeah. As you can see from my title, there is nothing neutral in working with the military junta. And in fact, the people's experience on the ground speaks for that. Because, like I said in my also presentation, sharing with you, updating, this is the same military who attacks the humanitarian convoys. This is the same military who have arrested the humanitarian aid workers and imprisoned them. But not now. I'm not even talking about the past 6 months. I'm talking about the previous years. They are the one who blocked the humanitarian aid entering into the areas where the people are in dire need. And in some cases, they use the humanitarian convoy to actually bring in their presence. So when the humanitarian aid being delivered, after that, they remain to be the problem for the community. They stay behind and they continue with their fathering their militarization. So you see, in Myanmar, at least I can speak for Myanmar, in Myanmar, humanitarian aid, in spite of those principles that we also want to see and support, like medical neutrality, humanitarian neutrality and impartiality, but it is not possible on the ground because of this military. So in that case, my proposal to the donor community is, why don't you actually work with the very people on the ground who are from the communities, who know what is the best for their community, who know what is the need for the community, and also who have the capacity and agency of how to deliver the aid to the communities in need, because they are from those communities. So who else can be your best allies if you want to achieve your mission, which is to deliver the humanitarian need for the needy people on the ground?
There is a related question from Jamie. Nice to have you here in this forum. Is asking about Japan. We gave oxygen concentration to UNOPS, and the question is, where is this oxygen going? To the junta hospital, or who is going to you? So what is your thinking about this donation? I think is closely related to the issue you are raising.
Right. I don't want to say anything that can be kind of like seen undermining the UNOPS, because I want them to be able to do the right thing and right. I want them to do the things right for the people on the ground. So my suggestion for that, knowing of how the oxygen being, blocked and stopped by the military, including shooting the people who are trying to get the oxygen, you see? So for the UNOPS, what they have to do is try to stay on this impartiality, tell the junta, look, we know that we have to get you also be a part of this, but only for you to give us the permission where we will actually run the show with the locals, don't attack the medical doctors and workers on the ground. We will work with them. It is the impartiality. It is the neutrality. So let us do our work according to our principle that as the country that you are to comply with. So let us do our job. By saying that, don't allow the military to take control or dictate where this oxygen are going to be distributed. Make sure that they are in touch with those medical doctors who are doing the enormous great job in spite of risk on the ground. They are willing to work with the UN agencies. They are willing to work with the INGOs. So work with them, basically, But also, I think UN or OPS needs to, because oxygen is just one thing, right? That the people are needing on the ground. There are many other things that they have to bring in. But in order for those operations to be successful, impartially, they have to also make sure that they are backed by the highest body of the highest political authority or highest political mandate of the United Nations, starting from the Secretary General to the Security Council. Because after all, there are 2 resolutions last year that Security Council has passed to deal with the COVID crisis. So according to those Security Council resolutions, one is for this country to get the assistance, they have to be also be in compliance with those, the protocols. I think the UN agency, the UN country team in Myanmar, they need to ensure that they get the highest political backup from New York. I think only then these operations can be successful reaching to the people. Because like I said, let's not forget, this military what they're doing is collective punishment. So those resist their power will not get the oxygen. So they have they even have this civilian wing. The military junta has the civilian wing who already issue statements, a threat to the public, like, if you want to be saved from the COVID, support the military, you see? So it's very important that the UN agencies and the international community don't fall in that trap of the military weaponizing the COVID. Yeah. And sorry, they have to work with there is a new COVID task force, CTF, formed by the ethnic health organizations led by the #1 humanitarian leader of our country, Dr. Cynthia Mao, and also the National Unity Government Health Minister, who also is a leader of the civil disobedience movement himself. He is the Minister of the National Unity Government, Minister for Health. And they have now a joint task force. So all of these UN agencies and INGOs, international community, must work with them, and also the local civil society and community-based organizations, including the ethnic community-based groups doing the cross-border work.
Okay, thank you for this. And I think it's important indeed to know that there is support that can go. There are groups that can receive support and are able to operate within the country. It doesn't need necessarily to go through a bilateral route. Last question for today. Some foreign business, this is Ati, a journalist from Indonesia. Some foreign business have reportedly discontinued operation in Myanmar. They have stopped their operation. What has been the impact? Has there been any serious impact, or is made any difference?
Thank you for the question. Before that, let me also just raise one very big point of my op-ed. What I'm actually also implying is if the international donors and UN agencies don't actually ensure that the military from weaponizing the COVID or the COVID humanitarian assistance, their operations are going to come to the point of compliciting the military, continue committing of the crimes against humanity and war crimes, which is going to be horrible, isn't it? Because in 2007, the UN failed the Rohingya people in that genocide. I think it's so important that now the UN does not fail again in this very crisis time. Coming back to this question on the foreign businesses. Yes, you're right. Some foreign businesses have discontinued. We have been also campaigning for, advocating for that. And in fact, the UN fact-finding mission have been recommending this since 2018, that the international business community cut the financial ties with its military, because that's how the military found themselves to be, above law, to be above the law, to be above the civilian government, to be above everything, where they continue to enjoy their blanket impunity. So we need to cut that impunity. And that's one of the way is to cut this finance going through them, flowing to them. So that's why any business community who, after the military coup, discontinue or making the payments to this military, it's significant. It is so significant because first, it shows of their morality in this world, where the people are actually dying on the ground, where the military, where the money is going to go in, are the one who committing all of these crimes. And if they give those money, and basically these are the people who stand accused of these international crimes, so they will be complicit, like I'm saying, they will be complicit in those crimes the military is continuing. So one is moral, it's also good for their own ethics, but also of course taking stand with the people of Myanmar who are trying to fight against this ruthless, murderous regime. So the practicality of this money the military is not getting, because if they don't get it, they cannot, continue to buy the arms. They cannot, get their business as usual, dealing with the international. So if they do that, if the businesses do that, it is such a minus for this military, So every support is important at this point. So the business community taking such kind of moral stand is super important, and also very practically an impact to the military for not having the access to this finance. Yeah.
So we have a very quick question from Facebook, which I think you will appreciate. Is about this: what is the situation of the Rohingya population right now? we don't have much time. I know it's a very
Yes.
complex question,
Sure.
so you may want to say a few words, and then the next update we will devote more attention.
Sure, I'll try to be quick. So with the military coup, the Rohingya community who remain in Myanmar continue to live in this open air prison conditions, continue to be apartheid-like conditions. They cannot move, they cannot leave the camp, they cannot go, they cannot get the basic humanitarian aid needs as they need. No medical, no access to medical care or the, education for the children. You can imagine how the children now become to be already teenagers and beyond, yeah. And it's a very serious conditions that they are having. Those are about 1 million refugees, Rohingya refugees on the Bangladesh side. Of course, thanks to the Bangladesh government, they at least they have a place. But of course, there are many challenges, including the, different abuses at the same time, and also, restrictions here and there on, imposed from the local authorities. And also the humanitarian aid coming to be, shorter. So I think there are many challenges. They should be able to go back home where they belong in Rakhine, northern Rakhine state of Myanmar. But with this military coup, and as long as this military remain in power, there is no possibility for the Rohingya community, Rohingya refugees to return home. So yes, the military coup further exacerbated the conditions of the Rohingya community, whether they are in the country or on the border in Bangladesh.
So thank you very much, Omar. And indeed, we are lucky that we will have Omar with us for a while. So we will talk more about this in the next event, which will be in 2 weeks' time. We will have another update about what is happening in Myanmar. I think more than ever, it's important to continue to pay attention to the situation of Myanmar and try way to support. We learn from her and from others how to support the resilience of the people of Myanmar. So thank you very much and see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Leah. Thanks to everyone. Yes. Please continue to show your support and solidarity with the people of Myanmar. Thank you.
3 finger. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.